The night air was sharp and biting, the kind of cold that cuts through even the thickest layers. On the corner of 6th and Elm, under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a homeless woman huddled in her worn-out coat. Her name was Lisa. Life hadn't been kind to her. She had lost her job, her apartment, and the sense of security she once thought was unshakable. Tonight, she shivered, hoping the cardboard box she found would block out the wind. It didn't. Across the street, a sleek black car pulled up. The kind of car Lisa had only seen in magazines when life was better. A man stepped out, tall, well-dressed, with an air of authority that seemed to part the cold around him. He crossed the street and stood in front of her, his sharp eyes scanning her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "Do you have a name?" he asked, his voice steady and calm, though something about it carried a weight she couldn't place. Lisa stared up at him, wary. She had learned long ago that strangers usually wanted something, and it wasn't always good. "Lisa," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help, Lisa," he said. The statement was so strange, so unexpected, that she actually laughed, a short, dry sound. "My help? Look around. I don't even have my own life together. I'll pay you," he said, pulling out a business card and holding it out to her. She didn't take it. "For what?" she asked, crossing her arms over her chest. "I need someone to carry my child." The words hit her like a punch. Her heart pounded in her ears as she stared at him, sure she hadn't heard right. "What did you just say?" "I'm willing to pay you to have my child," he repeated, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. $500,000 upfront and another $500,000 upon the child's birth. Lisa's mind reeled. $500,000? Just for carrying a baby? She could have a place to live, food to eat, even start over. But the idea made her stomach churn. Who was this man? Why would he choose her, of all people? "What's the catch?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "No catch. Just a business arrangement," he said smoothly. "You give me what I want, and you get what you need." Lisa didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or run. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a void. But then he said something that changed everything. "You'll never have to sleep on the street again." Lisa stared at the man, her heart pounding. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Could she trust him? Was this some sort of cruel joke? She looked down at her trembling hands that had rummaged through trash cans and fought off the cold for far too long. "Why me?" she finally asked. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. The man's expression didn't change. He crouched down, bringing himself to her level. "Because you have nothing to lose," he said simply, "and because I don't have time for games. I've been through all the usual channels, agencies, clinics, lawyers, and they've all failed me. I need this to be quick and discreet." Lisa's stomach twisted. She didn't know what was worse, the fact that he was so blunt or the fact that he was right. She had nothing left to lose. "I need time to think," she said, her voice shaking. "You have 24 hours, he replied, standing and slipping the business card into her lap. "After that, the offer is off the table." Without another word, he turned and walked back to his car. The door slammed shut, and the sleek vehicle disappeared into the night, leaving Lisa alone with the card and the impossible decision weighing heavy on her chest. Lisa couldn't sleep that night. The man's words echoed in her mind, mixing with memories of the life she used to have. She thought about the warmth of a real bed, the smell of coffee in the morning, and the way she used to laugh without fear of what tomorrow would bring. $500,000 could give her all of that back. But at what cost? By morning, her resolve hardened. She wasn't agreeing because she wanted his money. She was agreeing because she wanted her life back. And maybe, just maybe, this was her way out of the darkness. When Lisa walked into the towering office building the next day, she felt out of place. Her clothes were mismatched and worn, her hair tangled from nights spent on the streets. The receptionist gave her a puzzled look but didn't say anything. Moments later, the man appeared. He was just as intimidating in daylight. "Follow me," he said curtly. They entered a private office. The walls were lined with books, and the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bustling city below. "If you believe in the power of stories to heal, to teach, and to inspire," This is your place. Subscribe now and be part of a community that sees beyond the headlines into the lives that shape them. Together, we'll explore stories that truly matter. He gestured for her to sit. She hesitated but eventually sank into the leather chair. My name is Andrew, he said, sitting across from her. Andrew Callahan. Lisa nodded. Okay. Andrew slid a thick folder across the desk. This is the contract. It outlines everything: your medical care, living arrangements, payment schedule, and my expectations. Lisa opened the folder, her eyes scanning the dense text. It felt overwhelming, but Andrew didn't rush her. After a long pause, she looked up at him. Why is this so important to you? She asked. Andrew's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked almost vulnerable. That's personal, he said. Let's just say I've spent my life building my business, and now it's time to build something that lasts. Lisa didn't press further. She didn't know if it was fear or curiosity that made her say it, but the words left her mouth before she could stop them. I'll do it. Andrew's face remained stoic, but she thought she saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. Good. We'll start immediately. Over the next few weeks, Lisa moved into a modest but comfortable apartment. She underwent medical exams and started the process of surrogacy. Andrew visited occasionally, always professional, always distant. At first, their conversations were brief and transactional discussions about appointments, schedules, and logistics. But slowly, things began to change. One evening, Andrew showed up unexpectedly. He brought dinner takeout from an expensive restaurant and sat across from her at the small kitchen table. You don't have to keep doing that, Lisa said, watching him cut his steak with precision. Doing what? Treating me like I'm a stranger. Like this is just a deal. Andrew looked up, surprised. He set his knife down and leaned back in his chair. What do you want me to say, Lisa? That this is normal? That I know how to handle this? For starters, you could tell me why you're doing this, she said, her voice soft but firm. Andrew hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he began to speak. He told her about his lonely childhood, about his parents who had been too busy chasing success to notice their son. He told her about the loss of his fiancée years ago, a tragedy that left him convinced he was destined to be alone. And finally, he told her about his longing for a family, something he couldn't buy, no matter how wealthy he became. By the time he finished, Lisa's heart ached for him. She saw a man who wasn't as cold and calculating as he seemed. He was just human. As the months passed, their bond grew. They started sharing meals, stories, and pieces of themselves they hadn't shown anyone else. Andrew was there for every doctor's appointment, every milestone. He listened to Lisa's dreams of becoming a teacher, of having a purpose again. And Lisa saw the softer side of Andrew, the man who brought her books because he remembered her saying she loved to read, the man who sat beside her when she felt overwhelmed by the changes in her body. One evening, as they sat on the couch, watching an old movie, Andrew turned to her. Lisa, I need you to know something. She looked at him, her heart pounding. What? This isn't just a business arrangement anymore. I care about you, about us, and I want to be here for you and the baby. Tears filled Lisa's eyes. She didn't say anything, but she reached for his hand, holding it tightly. The night Lisa went into labor, Andrew was by her side. He held her hand, whispered words of encouragement, and refused to leave the room. When their daughter was born, the sound of her first cry filled the room, and both of them broke into tears. Andrew cradled the tiny baby in his arms, looking at Lisa with a mix of awe and gratitude. We did it, he said, his voice shaking. Lisa smiled through her tears. No, Andrew, we did more than that. We found each other, and in that moment, they weren't just two strangers bound by a contract. They were a family. The weeks after the baby's birth were a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and tiny moments of joy. They named her Hope because that's what she had brought into both their lives. Hope for a future neither of them thought possible. Andrew insisted Lisa and Hope stay with him at his estate. At first, Lisa was hesitant. The mansion felt overwhelming, too polished and perfect, a stark contrast to the life she had known. But Andrew had a way of making her feel at ease. He carved out space for her and Hope, ensuring they felt like they belonged. One quiet evening, After Hope had finally drifted off to sleep, Lisa and Andrew sat together in the living room. The fire crackled softly, casting warm light across the room. "You know, I still don't understand why you chose me," Lisa said, breaking the comfortable silence. Andrew leaned back in his chair, his eyes thoughtful. "You weren't afraid to ask hard questions, to challenge me. Everyone else I approached treated me like a transaction. But you made me think. You reminded me what it means to connect." Lisa smiled, her heart warming at his words. "And here I thought I was just a convenient choice." Andrew shook his head. "No, Lisa, you were the right choice." Their conversations grew deeper as the days turned into months. They shared stories of their pasts, their fears, and their dreams. Lisa told Andrew about her struggles on the streets, about the nights she spent wondering if she'd see another sunrise. Andrew opened up about the guilt he carried, how he had spent so much of his life chasing wealth that he had forgotten to truly live. One evening, as they walked through the garden, Andrew stopped and turned to Lisa. "I know this started as something unconventional, but I need you to know that I care about you, Lisa. More than I ever thought possible." Lisa looked up at him, her breath catching. "Andrew, she hesitated, the weight of her feelings pressing down on her. "I care about you too, but I'm scared. What if this doesn't work? What if I let you down?" Andrew stepped closer, his voice steady. "You could never let me down. You've already given me more than I ever deserved." Their connection deepened, their relationship growing beyond the boundaries of their original agreement. They weren't just partners in a business deal. They were partners in life. As Hope grew, so did their little family. Lisa pursued her dream of teaching, with Andrew's unwavering support. She worked part-time at a local community center, helping underprivileged kids find their potential. Andrew, meanwhile, made an effort to balance his work and home life, ensuring he was present for the moments that mattered. One day, as they celebrated Hope's first birthday, surrounded by laughter and the people they had grown close to, Andrew took Lisa's hand. "Lisa," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I've been waiting for the right moment to do this." Her heart raced as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. The room went quiet, all eyes on them. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've shown me what it means to love, to care, to believe in something bigger than myself. I don't want to spend another day without you by my side." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Lisa, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Lisa's face as she nodded, unable to speak. The room erupted in cheers, but all she could focus on was Andrew and the overwhelming joy in his eyes. "Yes," she finally managed, her voice trembling. "Yes, Andrew, I'll marry you." Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, held in the garden where they had shared so many of their deepest conversations. As they exchanged vows, Lisa couldn't help but think about how far they had come from a cold street corner to a life filled with love and promise. Andrew's voice broke as he spoke his vows. "Lisa, you've given me more than I ever thought I deserved. You've given me hope, a family, and a reason to be better every day. I promise to stand by you, to support you, and to love you with everything I have." Lisa wiped her tears as she spoke her own vows. "Andrew, you saw me when I thought I was invisible. You believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself. I promise to love you, to challenge you, and to build a life with you that we can both be proud of." As they kissed, the future stretched before them, full of possibility. Years later, as Lisa and Andrew watched Hope play in the garden, now joined by her younger brother, Grace, Lisa turned to Andrew. "Do you ever think about how this all started?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Andrew smiled, pulling her close. "Every day, and I wouldn't change a thing." Their journey had been anything but ordinary, but it had brought them something extraordinary. A love that defied the odds and a family that redefined what it meant to belong. The years rolled on, and their lives became a tapestry of laughter, challenges, and triumphs. Hope grew into a bright and curious child, always asking questions about the world. Her younger brother, Grace, was quieter but observant, with a mischievous streak that kept Lisa and Andrew on their toes. Despite their happiness, Shadows from their pasts occasionally crept in. Lisa, now a confident teacher, still found herself grappling with the memories of her time on the streets. Every now and then, when she walked past someone huddled in a doorway, the pang of guilt and recognition struck her. One crisp autumn afternoon, as she and Andrew walked hand in hand through the city with their children, Lisa stopped suddenly. Across the street, a woman sat on the pavement, her face pale, her belongings stuffed into a tattered bag. Lisa's chest tightened. "Andrew," she said, tugging his hand. "I need to do something." He followed her as she crossed the street. Lisa crouched down in front of the woman, her voice soft. "Hi, my name's Lisa. Are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. "I'm fine," she mumbled, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Lisa recognized the fear and pride in her eyes, the same emotions she had felt years ago when Andrew first approached her. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, one that bore the name of the community center where she worked. "I've been where you are," Lisa said gently. "If you ever need help, a place to warm up, or just someone to talk to, come here. We'll figure it out together." The woman hesitated but took the card. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. As they walked away, Andrew wrapped an arm around Lisa's shoulders. "You're amazing. You know that." Lisa smiled up at him. "I just want to pay it forward. If you hadn't reached out to me that night, who knows where I'd be." Back at home, their life was bustling and warm. Hope loved to sit by the fireplace, listening to Andrew's stories about his business ventures and travels, while Grace often curled up in Lisa's lap, listening intently to her tales about the students she taught. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Lisa and Andrew sat on the porch watching the stars. The night was still, save for the distant chirping of crickets. "Do you ever regret it?" Lisa asked suddenly. "Regret what?" Andrew replied, turning to her. "Everything approaching me that night. The risk you took. It was such a wild decision." Andrew chuckled, his voice low and warm. "Lisa, that was the best decision of my life. I found you, didn't I? And together, we've built something I never thought I'd have: a family, a home, love." Lisa leaned her head against his shoulder, her heart swelling. "I never thought I'd have any of this either. But I'm so grateful." Andrew kissed the top of her head. "We've both come a long way. And the best part? We're just getting started." As the years passed, Lisa and Andrew continued to grow, both as individuals and as partners. They turned their home into a sanctuary, not just for their children, but for anyone who needed a second chance. They hosted fundraisers, mentored struggling young adults, and opened a scholarship program for single parents who wanted to return to school. Their story became an inspiration in their community, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the willingness to see the humanity in others. One evening, as Lisa tucked Hope and Grace into bed, Hope looked up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy, how did you and Daddy meet?" Lisa smiled, her heart full. "It's a long story, sweetheart. But the short version? Your daddy and I found each other when we needed it most. And together, we made something beautiful." As she kissed her children goodnight and walked down the hall, Lisa felt a deep sense of peace. Life hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Every moment, every choice, had led her to this: a family, a purpose, and a love that defied the odds. And for Lisa and Andrew, that was more than enough. As the years unfolded, Lisa and Andrew's family continued to grow, not just in size but in strength and impact. They remained deeply committed to helping others, their story becoming a source of hope for many who felt trapped by life's circumstances. One snowy December evening, the Callahan household was alive with the sounds of joy. Hope and Grace were helping Lisa decorate the Christmas tree, their laughter echoing through the house. Andrew stood in the kitchen, stirring hot cocoa and sneaking marshmallows when he thought no one was looking. The doorbell rang, and Lisa wiped her hands on her apron before heading to the door. Standing there was a young man, his clothes threadbare, his eyes tired but filled with determination. "Mrs. Callahan?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "Yes," Lisa replied warmly. "Can I help you?" I heard about you from the community center," he said, holding up one of the flyers she'd designed. I'm trying to get back on my feet, and they said you might be able to help. Lisa smiled, her heart swelling. Of course. Come in. It's freezing out there. The young man stepped inside, his shoulders relaxing as the warmth of the house enveloped him. Andrew appeared, holding a mug of cocoa. He handed it to the young man without a word, his silent gesture saying everything. Over the next hour, the young man shared his story. He'd aged out of foster care and had been struggling to find steady work and housing. Lisa listened intently, her hand resting on Andrew's. When the young man finished, she said, "You're not alone anymore. We'll help you figure this out." That night, after the young man had left with a promise to return for a formal plan, Lisa and Andrew sat together on the couch, watching the fire flicker. "You never stop, do you?" Andrew said, a hint of admiration in his voice. Lisa smiled. "Neither do you." He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "You know, I used to think success was about money, about building a name for myself. But none of it compares to this, to what we've built together." Lisa looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "And to think it all started with a business deal." Andrew chuckled. "A very unconventional business deal." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the warmth of the fire wrapping around them like a blanket. Then Lisa spoke, her voice soft. "Do you ever wonder what Hope and Grace will think of our story when they're older?" Andrew nodded. "I think they'll be proud. Proud that their parents took a chance on each other. Proud that love can come from the most unexpected places." Lisa leaned her head against his shoulder. "I hope so. I want them to know that no matter where you start in life, it's where you go that matters." Andrew kissed her forehead. "They'll know, because they'll see it every day in the way we love them, in the way we treat others, in the life we've created." As time went on, the Callahans continued to inspire those around them. Hope grew into a passionate advocate for social justice, dedicating her life to helping the homeless and vulnerable. Grace, ever the quiet thinker, pursued a career in medicine, determined to heal not just bodies but hearts. Lisa and Andrew watched with pride as their children carried forward the values they had instilled: compassion, resilience, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. And as they sat together on their porch one warm summer evening, the laughter of their grandchildren echoing through the yard, Lisa turned to Andrew. "Do you think we did enough?" she asked, her voice tinged with the weight of a life well lived. Andrew smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "More than enough, Lisa. We built something that will outlive us, a legacy of love, hope, and kindness." Lisa took his hand, her heart full. "Then I wouldn't change a thing." Andrew leaned in, his voice soft but steady. "Neither would I." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, they sat together, surrounded by the family they had built, a testament to the power of love, redemption, and the courage to take a chance on the unexpected. As Lisa and Andrew entered the twilight of their lives, their home became a gathering place for family and friends. Their children, Hope and Grace, visited often with their families, filling the house with the sounds of joy and the kind of chaos only grandchildren could bring. One crisp autumn morning, Lisa stood in the garden, her favorite place to think. The trees were alive with colors: fiery reds, warm oranges, and golden yellows. The garden had been her sanctuary, a place where she had planted flowers, vegetables, and memories. It was where she and Andrew had shared their deepest conversations, where Hope had taken her first steps, and where Grace had once insisted he could climb a tree as tall as the house. Lisa smiled at the memories as Andrew joined her, his steps slow but steady. His hair was mostly gray now, his face lined with the marks of a life well lived. But his eyes still held the same warmth that had melted her defenses all those years ago. "Thinking about something?" he asked, slipping an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him. "Just everything. How far we've come, how much we've been through." Andrew nodded, his gaze sweeping across the garden. "It's been quite a journey." Lisa turned to him, her expression tender. "Do you ever think about that night? The one where you found me on the street?" Andrew smiled softly. "I think about it all the time. How close I came to walking away. How different life could have been if either of us had made a different choice." Lisa reached for his hand, her voice trembling with emotion. You saved me, Andrew, not just with your money or your offer, but with your belief in me. You gave me a chance when no one else would. Andrew shook his head. You saved me too. Lisa, you taught me what it means to truly live, to care about more than just myself. I didn't give you a chance, you gave me one. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their words settling between them. Then Lisa smiled, a glint of mischief in her eyes. You know, for a business arrangement, we sure messed up the professional boundaries. Andrew laughed. The sound rich and full. Best mistake I ever made. As the years passed, Lisa and Andrew's story became a legend in their community. They continued their work with the homeless and vulnerable, even as their roles shifted to advising and mentoring the younger generations who had taken up their cause. One evening, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, Lisa and Andrew sat together in the living room. Hope was showing old family photos to her kids, and Grace was explaining how the garden had been their mother's pride and joy. Tell us again how you and Grandpa met. One of the grandchildren piped up, her eyes wide with curiosity. Andrew chuckled, his gaze meeting Lisa's. Well, it's a long story, Lisa interrupted, her tone playful. And every time he tells it, he makes himself sound more heroic. The room filled with laughter as Andrew feigned offense. Hey, I was heroic. I found your mother, didn't I? Lisa rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. He's right though. It's a story about taking chances, even when everything seems impossible. Hope chimed in, her voice warm. And it's about love that doesn't always come in the ways you expect. Lisa and Andrew exchanged a glance, their hearts full. They had built something beautiful, something that would outlive them. One peaceful morning, Lisa sat in the garden with a journal in her lap. She had begun writing their story, hoping to preserve it for future generations. As she penned the final words, Andrew joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. Finished? He asked, setting one cup beside her. Lisa nodded, closing the journal. I think so. I wanted to make sure our family knows where we came from, how it all started. Andrew leaned over, reading the title she had written at the top of the page. Hope in the Unexpected. It's perfect, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Just like you. Lisa smiled, reaching for his hand. No, Andrew, it's perfect because of us. As the sun rose higher in the sky, they sat together in the garden, their hearts full, their journey complete, and their legacy secure. And in the quiet moments that followed, they knew they had lived a life worth telling, a life defined by love, resilience, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. If you believe in the power of stories to heal, to teach, and to inspire, this is your place. Subscribe now and be part of a community that sees beyond the headlines into the lives that shape them. Together, we'll explore stories that truly matter.